What's up, everyone? It's Shaletta. I'm here getting a phone for one of my newly minted teenagers with Xfinity Mobile. They've got great options, affordable plans, and solid coverage that works for our whole family. With Xfinity Mobile, my daughter can stay connected with me wherever she goes. And did you know when you sign up, you can get an extra phone line free for a full year? Switch to Xfinity Mobile today for more savings, more smiles, and more ways to stay connected.
In Minnesota, we pride ourselves on our nation-leading voter turnout and safe, secure elections. Elections allow us to make our voices heard and stand up for the communities and issues we care about. To exercise your right to vote, first make sure that you are registered to vote. After registering to vote, make a plan to vote on or before Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Learn about how to register to vote, cast your ballot, find your polling place, and more by visiting mnvotes.org.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Financially Fit Podcast. I am your host, Andre Creighton. I'm very excited to be here with you all in the midst of one more week until we move to our next home. So if you see my background, it's looking pretty bare bones here. A little chaotic in other places, but I'm in a new kind of environment than probably you see on most of the podcasts. So that's what's going on in my life. So today, what we're going to talk about is navigating gig economy work. So this has become a lot more prevalent in today's society, specifically, thinking about the higher interest rates, thinking about inflation, so the cost of rent, food, gas, etc. A lot of people are turning to other ways to make income, and often other times it could be that you know in the times that we're coming out of, a lot of people have lost their jobs over the past couple of years, and maybe they've turned to not wanting to rely on corporate America anymore and move into doing their own type of work. I can say as myself, I still work full time as a CFO, but I do some consulting on the side in the wee hour nights, to make some additional money, and then also just to keep up on my skills and learn different things working in other industries and verticals. I also do this podcast, very what I would call modest income on this. I really do this out of just really wanting to make um, more provide people with more guidance on what they should be doing in their financial journey. So with that being said, let's hop in and into our topic. So for those that are maybe thinking about gig economy and thinking about getting into something that would cause more variability in their income, the one thing that we always say when we're jumping into something like this is understand how you're supposed to be set up legally. Obviously, if you're a sole proprietor, this is something that come tax time, you'll just put on your Schedule C, which will be included in your personal income tax. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about all the intricacies of, filing your return and those things, but we will talk very high level. So, unlike a traditional job, what we know about gig economy work is income fluctuates a lot, right? Depending on what you're doing, uh, typically you're a contractor, so you'll receive a 1099 for the work that you're doing. For any jobs or income that's earned over $600, and what we see is because of that variability, there is really, really important financial concepts that we need to make sure we understand around how to budget on a monthly basis and how to set aside a percentage of those earnings during higher, earning months, to be able to subsidize for those leaner times. Like I said, it all depends on what you're doing. There are some, gig economy jobs where there's more variability based on seasonality, right? So think about someone who does maybe lawn services or maybe irrigation system services, right? Well, here in Minnesota, where I live, we get snow from November. Well, it's October now, and it's very snowy today. Um, but from November through sometimes March, April, maybe even into May, depending on the year, right? So a lot of the calendar year is winter months. So I would think from that perspective, someone that runs an irrigation system service, they're likely seeing very high peaks during that spring to fall time, and then they blow it out at the end of the fall, and then they have the months in the winter where they're not making any money. So when I say that we need to be prepared for that variability, that's what I'm talking about, right? Being able to understand that I'm making a lot of my money over a 4 or 5 month span, and how can I save money in those higher earning months for the leaner months, right? Maybe they do snow removal in the winter, and that's how they subsidize those things. But let's just being conscious of how the variability looks within that income. So then the other thing, and I said I'm not going to dive into this very granular, more on a high level standpoint, but being aware of the tax considerations. So, as I mentioned, as an independent contractor, you'll receive what is called a Form 1099 for all income that's earned over $600. You have to pick that up on your tax return, because what happens in a 1099 scenario is it's just like your W-2, right? Um, you receive a W-2, but then also the IRS receives the same W-2. The same happens on the 1099 side of things. You receive a 1099, the IRS receives a 1099, and they use their automated system to make sure that you've included all the income, and they match it with your EIN number, your social security. In this instance, it would be your social security, since it's sole proprietorship. And that is the way that they will be able to either send you a notice saying, hey, you missed this income and you owe X dollars because you missed this, or maybe you overcompensated and they say, hey, you're due this refund, right? Um, so then the other things that we want to talk about are from a tax lens is, one, keeping accurate records. It's very important to make sure that we have accurate records, right? So anytime you spend something that's a business related expense, we want to have a receipt for that. We want to have it tied to a said invoice, and we want to be able to save that somewhere so we can be able to look back on that if needed, if we're audited, or if you're just needed to provide that to your CPA at the end of when you're filing your tax return. The one thing I must say is, like, so you have a 7-year period from the time that you file your taxes where you can be audited. Typically, what I say is it doesn't apply to most people. It's very similar to, you think about when someone gets elected for jury duty, right? It's random. The same is true with the audit process. Now, there are companies, individuals that are audited more often, and those are typically your very high net worth individuals or high earning corporations that are audited on a consistent basis. A lot of that came due to the Enron stuff, where there was a lot of fraud that happened, and now we are severely audited, especially those high earning corporations and individuals, to make sure that we're not doing any tax evasion or having any type of tax shelters. So the other thing that we should think about is also understanding what are deductible related work expenses, right? So not everything is deductible, but what I do always talk about is obviously, if you use your cell phone or internet and things like that for work, a portion of that can be deducted, and we won't get into all the intricacies of that. We'll talk about that later down the line on another episode. Uh, but that is something to be conscious of. The last thing I want to talk about is, um, obviously, if you are a sole proprietor and you're doing contract work and that's all you do, that's your full-time job. So if, say, I'm not a CFO at a full-time at a company, I'm a consultant full-time, and I'm just in and out of a bunch of different businesses, and I'm a 1099 employee, well, likely I don't get benefits, right? Um, at least now that doesn't mean that you can't get benefits through your company, but you have to go out into the open market for that. So that is kind of one downfall, I would say, to the consulting side of it. Now, obviously, if you're making enough money, then there's at a point where it's a moot point. But I would say that that is kind of a deterrent from doing this work and stepping out solo, because you are going to pay more in health insurance, just simply because it's your how health insurance packets work is in a corporation. They look at the totality of all the employees, and that drives down costs. So it is very volume based. Um, One thing you can do is you could open up a HSA, which is a health savings account. Now, what that will allow you to do is just be able to kind of budget out how much money you want to put into that HSA to help support your medical expenses. And this is a good way to kind of keep that deductible lower, and be able to potentially put money aside to support those expenses, because you have a lower deductible. Um, the other thing that is a challenge within this gig economy work is retirement. So obviously, you're not attached to a corporate 401k plan. So, obviously, if you're a person that's looking to retire, which hopefully most people are looking to retire and do something maybe more enjoyable, or spend more time with family, or travel more, whatever it may be, um, an option is for you is to maybe look into an IRA. So that's an individual retirement account. Now there are limits on that. Typically, I believe the limit is up to 7,000 per year if you're under 67 and a half, I believe. And then it obviously goes up. There's some catch up you can do if you're over the age threshold. Now there are income thresholds on that, and we won't get into what those income threshold limits are. What I would advise you to do is, if you feel like you're a very high earner and you're approaching those income thresholds, I would work with your financial advisor to find out whether an IRA is the best way for you, because sometimes if you're earning too much money, then you aren't actually able to contribute as much as you would like. So ultimately, I like the gig economy work. I think it gives you more flexibility to do the things you need to do. I think we saw coming into COVID how working remote and having more flexibility to do the things you need to do, but then also get your work done, um, change the way that people work, live, in our society. And I think that we're going to see a lot more people that are pushing for that more flexible work-life balance. And if you can't get that in corporate America, you certainly can get that uh, in your gig economy work, as you are the one that kind of controls your schedule. So as I said, like, I do consulting work and I have complete control, and I only do it during the wee hour nights. And my clients understand that. The clients that don't understand that, they're just not the right client for me. And that's just where I am in my career. Eventually, at some point in my career, probably getting closer toward retirement or even into retirement. I'm a person that probably will never fully retire, but I would probably do more consulting work and do that full time, versus working in corporate America. So hopefully this helps as you're thinking about getting into maybe gig economy and what the value is there. Uh, you know, as I always say, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So if you are jumping into gig economy work, don't get discouraged because you aren't taking off right away. I started doing a consulting back in November. I had one client, um, and it was a very short client. I had them for maybe a month, and then I was out of work for on a consulting basis until February, where I got my additional client, one additional client, and had them for 3 or 4 months. And then from there, I started to get good reviews, and now, I have 4 or 5 clients that I work with on a monthly basis, and that's kind of the sweet spot for me. I don't think I can take on any more clients with my full-time job, but I say that to say, don't get discouraged because you don't have the clientele that you want today. Just continue to build, continue to put your foot to the fire, and it will come. So with that being said, Thank you for listening to today's podcast. I would say the power is not in how much money you make. The power is in how much money you keep. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I am your host, Andre Creighton. I will see you on the next episode of Financially Fit.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
COVID-19 cases are on the rise, and peak flu season is almost here. Save time and get the updated COVID-19 vaccine and your flu shot at the same time at Hy-Vee. Schedule your updated COVID-19 vaccine and flu shot online today, or just stop by any Hy-Vee pharmacy whenever it's convenient for you. No appointment necessary. Plus, when you get your flu shot at Hy-Vee, earn a 20-cent fuel saver. Your Hy-Vee pharmacy is here to help you and your family stay healthy.
Are you the parent or guardian of an adult with autism? If your loved one has no restrictions or court order, then they are eligible to vote. And you can assist them in many ways. Some citizens with autism don't like unfamiliar places and activities. These voters might prefer to cast their ballot at an early voting center. Leading up to Election Day, these early voting centers are less busy and less likely to require waiting. Early voting centers are open all over Minnesota, and you can vote there right now. Or you can request an absentee ballot to vote by mail. That's right. Eligible voters can cast their ballots without ever leaving home. On Election Day, curbside voting is another option to make voting easy and comfortable. Election judges will bring a ballot directly to the vehicle with the person with a disability. Make a plan to support and assist your loved one with autism this election season, so they can participate and exercise their precious right to vote. You can find out more at mmvotes.gov. That's mmvotes.gov.
Your vote matters and has real-life impacts on our community. Have you made a plan to vote? You can vote early at your voting center before Election Day, and your employer must let you go with paid time off. You can also vote by mail by requesting a ballot from the Minnesota Secretary of State's website. If you have any questions or problems voting, call or send a text to 866-OUR-VOTE. That's 866-687-8683.